Hi.
Hello. I have fish.
Let me see.
There's 5 of them.
Cool. Calico just got home.
At the end, I was helping clean up, and they didn't know what to do with the rest of the fish. So
That happened to me one time. I came home with about 50. I'm so glad. Well, good. We wanted
and
fish.
All lies.
So great.
That one
That's
is
even better.
This one is a mustache. You see?
Yeah.
Get a mustache.
Okay, so get. You know where the little aquarium is?
No.
It's right over by your bedroom.
Where?
The little aquarium. Look around. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's in the living room. We moved it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going. Oh, we have 2 people. Hi. Don't start. We can do it after.
What do we do with them?
You should think about that before you bring them home. Hang on a minute. I started this right when she walked in the door.
They place them in there? Just place it and just let it sit.
Hang on a second. Sorry, kids. Put them in something else and then put a lid on the snake tank because she's about to come out too.
Where do I put them in?
Hang on a minute. Sorry for the delay. I didn't think she was coming home right away. You know what? Fine. Right. Okay. Calico, right down here. I'm showing you where it is. Come here. Don't put them in that. No, put them in right over here. There's a container. We've got people joining, and I really wanted to do this not online.
What am I putting in?
Right down there, the little thing that you can move the bird cage.
What?
Right down there.
This?
No, behind you, honey. Just a second. Right there. I'm looking right at it.
I don't know what.
First shelf. It has a ball on it. They'll take the lid off and put them in there. Yes.
There's rocks in there.
Yeah, I know. You're not going to dump the water in. Just leave them in the bag, and then as soon as the live feed is over, okay, they're not going to die. They'll be fine. Okay, am I backlit? I think I'm backlit. Hi. We're getting set up here. There are like last minute adjustments. Right now, I need you to get out of the way, kid. Did you put, oh, you didn't move, okay. We'll get him after. She left him on the shelf. Where are you going to be? What room?
Can I be in here?
I would rather you not. Don't let the dogs out. Tell me about it after because I'm live now. Hi. So, I really had wanted to have this established. I didn't know she was going to walk in the door right when I started. Could you please go into the other room so I can get to work? Okay. So all kinds of things are moving, and hang on a minute. Can you come do one thing before you go in the other room? Put the lid on the snake tank. I was going to have Kenji out. I was looking for a reptile because I wanted to be more grounded.
1 second.
Okay. But I can't find we have our house lizard, Carmen, and she's been gone now for about a day and a half. She's in here someplace. I'm not worried, but I don't know where she is. Okay, just put the lid on. And then what are you doing? Am I bad? I'm really badly backlit, aren't I? Wait. Okay. Is she gone? I always tell her she's not allowed to come on my live streams when I'm working. Sometimes she, if I have a private session with somebody, she darts her head in, says hello. All right. So per usual, I don't exactly know what's going to come in just now. They did come in with certain information. I know a lot of you. This is going to be a talk for where a lot of energetic adjustments are going to be made. I need you to stop interrupting me now that you're here. Yeah, I know. go into a room
I'm going in there.
and stay there. Thanks.
Sorry, I just had to grab my stuff and go down.
Because I don't want to be.
Have a good time.
Didn't she get big? Oddly enough, if it was, I'm really backlit. I'm having the same difficulties that so often happen at the beginning of a session or a beginning of a live stream. I'm just allowing the energies to kind of come in and settle, and they move around until everything kind of settles. It's like different sized particles that kind of just everything wants to level out. Okay. So I had intended to, I've known that certain information wanted to come through for several weeks, but then hang on a minute. For those of you who have not joined me before and maybe are not used to watching channelers, or particularly if you haven't seen me do it, there are a couple of things that are happening now at this time. When I connect to the higher dimensions, which I'm always in, it's actually it's easier for me to connect up there than it is for me to remain linear. One of the first things that's going to happen is my speech goes very nonlinear, and I'm in a state of kind of constant movement. I'm not going to read any of the comments right now. I might a little bit later. I took my glasses off on purpose so that it would be blurry. We're in a time of tremendous energetic flux on a number of within a number of dimensions, in a number of strata in the dimensions. So the information that I'm delivering is going to be very nonlinear at this time. There's going to be a period of time later on. This information will become more structured, and it will be I know that it's going to be going into some kind of a program. I've been told repeatedly that at this time, that is none of my business. They don't want my mind on it, actually. They want me to just focus on allowing the energetic flow. There's a tremendous amount of energetic adjustments, and some of it kind of goes against my normal tendencies. So, because the sheer quantity that I'm carrying, the number of other people that I'm connected to, there's a tremendous number, a very wide variety of various different needs, things that people need. And my energy is connected to all of it. So as they make fluctuations, I'm talking about spirit guides. I'm connected to your higher selves. You're connected to your higher selves, obviously, but hang on a minute. I know this is making no sense. Just give me a second. It might stay this way. How do I know? I know that, hang on. Believe it or not, I had structured this, and every time I get on and they're like, just get out of the way. They want to make a number of energetic adjustments because this group of people that's listening now I'm seeing three main subgroups in this group. They're just making energetic adjustments. Hang Hang on a minute. Sorry. So information came through that I've been waiting for. A number of us have been so stuck in stasis and we couldn't stand it, right? Stop it. I will put you down. The divine right timing is much more a matter of perfect vibrational alignment that will allow something to finally fall into place, much more so than it is about, like a magical date, or even though those do exist, specific dates that carry, certain harmonics. I'm not knocking, like the 1111 gateways or anything like that. But so many of us, we pass these portals, or we go through these major gateways. We know what they are. We recognize it. And then a certain date will come and go and be like, what the hell? Nothing happened. It's the same. Like, I've been waiting for a match change. What the fuck happened? I'm still the same. Where's my light body? We are waiting for something specific. I'm really not loving this light. Hang on. They are making certain energetic adjustments that are uncomfortable for different groups. Remember how I was saying that different groups, everything harmonizes with something, but not everything harmonizes with everything. There's certain things that you just need to rearrange. And a lot of it has to do with tweaking percentages. So the other day when I said that I was feeling extremely frustrated because I have known that certain things are supposedly coming and I can feel it, and I can feel that we're very close, and I'm watching everything around and it's just not reaching the tipping point. So, but I'm off the timeline, as I know a lot of you are, maybe not all of you, but there are enough people who follow me who are similarly off the timeline. So one of the reasons that tends to make us extremely impatient is because we are in the eternal now moment. So everything that happens, or we see something on the timeline, we know on the timeline trajectory, and we see something approaching and it feels imminent. It feels just instantly like we're there. We also tend to act very quickly because everything moves faster in the higher dimensions. Not to mention the fact that we also, in the higher dimensions, there's full transparency. We know how everything is going to work out. And it's so much better that we're very eager to get there, because a lot of us have seen what's there. We can look right down. It's like looking down, stop it. It's like looking down a street, and you can see what's ahead of you very clearly. And so a lot of us know that it's so much better that, of course, stop it. I'm going to put you down on the chair. Everything that happens in a reading means something. So the fact that she's constantly picking at my neck, I know, it means something. Fine. We'll get back to it later. So we're very eager to get there. It kind of generates a certain chronic impatience, right? By the way, if you're listening to this, if you're new to my channeling, I emit a very high frequency, very strong vibrational transmission, energetic transmission that it clears long-standing blockages and areas of stagnation. It provides usually a great deal of momentum toward a given venue. A lot of people in 5 will, especially light warriors who have come down for a particular time for a particular job, will emit a very strong vibrational transmission, which is picked up in everything they do, everything they say, everything they write. my energetic signature is very strong, and it usually is a dominant tuning fork that will kind of, everything else entrains to mine, unless it's equal, in which case, and that's what we're really aiming for. But I emit this energetic transmission. A lot of spiritual teachers do that. Matt Kahn, I remember him mentioning it in one of his videos one time, his energetic transmission, and he's so mellow, right? He's so mellow, and I just love his. And I'm thinking, he emits an energetic transmission too, but mine is nothing like that. Like every time you're with Matt Kahn, it's like you're so peaceful and so soothing, and everything's going to be okay. And that's not mine at all. Mine's like, yeah, everybody get up. I'm like the cosmic cheerleader. Electric spatula. Everybody get up and start moving. Where was I going with this? So I had been very, and my population too, I'm carrying this enormous population. And I know that I'm not presenting this material in a linear way. Later on, it's going to become so. It's just not right now. They told me, my guides have said, it needs to be that way for now. And there's something about this light that is bugging me. Just not happy with this. Hang on. All right, whatever. All right. Hang on. If you're, even if I'm not speaking, sometimes they just want me to be quiet and get out of the way. They're working with the energy streams of all of you. And also it's going to continue. Like, for example, if you tune into this and then you leave, it doesn't end. It's once you're incorporated, it's a little bit like the Borg, except we're nice and you can get out anytime you want. But it's not going to be, it isn't truncated. So if you tune out, you can come back and your energy is still getting adjusted. So I am going to tell you but right now they're just adjusting, they're just adjusting the energy. I'm really learning that as much as I try to control the live feeds, like I want certain things to happen, and I know that when I start the live feeds, I seem very disorganized. It's all over the place. And everybody wants me to kind of stay on topic and just address the issue. Later on, that's going to happen. But for the time being, there's too much mixing going on with all the people that are joining. And the people who are joining are here toward a purpose. So you can actually bypass, I'm not saying you have to, and I'm not saying drop your discernment or let somebody else be in charge of your mind. That's not it. But it is safe to go nonlinear. A lot of things are going to happen upcoming, especially the next few years, that your linear mind is not going to, will be unexpected. They're going to be surprises. And some of them are going to be really shocking in a bad way, but some of them are going to be equally shocking, as many are going to be equally shocking in a very good way. And I am just waiting for that. So you know that I'm going to wind up playing a role in the disclosure community way bigger than what I have now. I'm not allowed to say certain things until certain other things happen. So I have known that this is coming for a long time. And I can tell that it has to be done in a certain way. And my part of the reason that we're waiting is the wrong word. Things are being managed, micromanaged, because they have to be micromanaged. The reason they want me to have a network of high, wait, what's the word? There's a certain network that must be established of linked people that are high vibrational enough or solidly, wait. That's like hang on a minute. That's like 3 streams of information. I need enough division so I can get through a single sentence. How do I organize this? You better, okay, you do it. Remember when I said we were trying to get different groups to work together that don't normally harmonize? That is true. One thing they're trying to get me to do, along with my group, remember I was talking about the triangle that comes down from the top? The triangle comes down from the top. It naturally moves very quickly because it's all energy based and the vibration is much higher. So it moves very quickly. It moves in a circular way. It moves circular in both directions, actually. Remember I said it was like a carousel, like a great big tornado above my head. It moves very much like this. Manifestation is very, very, very rapid. In the 3rd dimension, when we're on a timeline, our manifestations are, number one, it's not the level of actual creation. That's above. Because the 3rd dimension and the timeline is there in a protective capacity to learn how to manage one's own self, one's own emotional reactions, so that when you get to 5 and you can actually begin to manifest stuff with your thinking, you're not going to spiral. If you think about instant manifestation, particularly when it's group consciousness, if we have one person in the group who is really polluted or doesn't have really solid mental hygiene in terms of what they choose to look at, you can tank us really quick because everything is contagious. If I have a thought, it's picked up by everybody else very quickly. So if someone is in a group in the 5th dimension and is triggered by something and has a strong emotional reaction, or like one of those what if moments, like, whoa, my God, I thought there was going to be a car accident, and a sudden jolt of fear and a sudden image, that can be transmitted to everyone and crash. That's how you lose whole groups, can be brought down very quickly. So all the people who are in 5, there's a certain skill set that's required. And there's not a hierarchy of good or bad, but there is a hierarchy of spiritual maturity that requires, with spiritual maturity comes more responsibility for others. In the 3rd dimension, there's the perception that everyone is separate. You have the perception of yourself as an individual, and you think that that person, that homeless person, is different from you, so you might not feed him. The reason that there's an enormous amount of generosity in the higher dimensions is because we recognize the other as the self. So if your foot itches, you scratch it. If you're hungry over there, you feed that person because you feel there's the amount of empathy is just pervasive. It's everywhere. And you recognize consciousness in absolutely everything. So this is terrain that we're headed into. I'm going to wind up talking at some point. I don't think it's in this channel. I don't think it's in this live stream, but I know that there's there's a separate block of information where I'm really going to be talking about the upcoming educational system and what is required, because the skill set, the previous skill set, is wrong. Not wrong. It works for 3. It will not work at all in the 5th dimension. There's a required skill set in the 5th dimension that is, everything is different. It's much more comprehensively based, for one. It acknowledges more than human beings. We're asked to rely on all of our senses, and the perceived divisions between ages and species, that all goes out the window. We don't have any of that in the 5th dimensional educational system. So I know that at some point I'm going to be talking a lot about that, a lot about what has to happen, the way it has to be destructured and restructured to provide growth and movement. It has to be based much more like a trellis, but we have to talk about that later. At the moment, they have told me, my guides have said, that I'm bringing the top triangle down, right? Down toward the earth. If you have followed, it would help if you have followed my previous live streams, because they're long and rambly, but there was a lot of information. The triangle that's coming up from the earth, that is physically based, they operate a very different way. They have been conditioned. They're moving out of density. Let's put it that way. And we're all portions of each too. I'm not saying you have to decide which one, you can experience both of them, obviously. I feel like I'm not presenting this information well. If you'll notice, my rational mind keeps jumping in to object. And meanwhile, my guides are saying, just allow it to flow. The important thing that I need to pay attention to now, and the reason I'm telling you, is because this is something that you're going to wind up needing to do. Hang on. I'm getting messages too as I'm speaking. There's a process of constant evaluation, or making constant mental note of the emotional weather, the ecosystem of how you're feeling, the emotional climate, moment to moment. And my guides had said that my role in doing these live streams, number one, it is going to change. Right now, I'm just gathering a network of people, and the energetic adjustments are being made not through me necessarily. They're being made on just as I'm speaking. Your guides, your higher self, and mine, and a tremendous number of helpers too, are here working with circuitry and just making energetic adjustments for everyone who hears this. So where was I going with this? So basically what we're doing is the top triangle is building a network. It's a circulation system that must be established and very well connected in order to accommodate the one that's coming up from the bottom. The one that's coming up from the bottom. So this is why I was told we have to hold still. And many of us are feeling, you know, we like it when things move faster. Those of us who have been on the cutting edge, I've said this before, the ones who are, you know, we've lost everything. We're living in our cars or outdoors or in vans, and we're no longer attached to the 3D financial model. Most of us have lost our houses, our families, our health. There's been a tremendous amount of hardship for those of us, and it's a thin layer too, you know, if you're one, because everyone up there, we recognize one another, right? Also in the fifth dimension, there's, and all higher dimensions, there's full transparency. People in, I'm not knocking them, I'm not insulting them. People in lower dimensions, everything is opaque. And you believe that you're separate and other people can't see what you're thinking. And you can't see what other people are thinking. That's why it's possible to keep secrets. It's not possible to do that in 5. So one of the things that one must be able to withstand is full transparency. So I hadn't intended to talk about this at all, but it's true that when you rise in frequency, you recognize one another by virtue of your vibrational frequency. That's why, like, all documentation goes out the window. A lot of us are going to be really happy when that happens. You don't have to fill out endless forms. You know, we can scan one another. I can see you. I know what your motivation is. There is no lying. The legal system, it's going to change the legal system completely. It's going to change everything. And it's coming. And it's not a matter, you know this. If you follow this, you know that this change is occurring. People who have, souls who have really made the committed decision that they want to stay in 3 and they still need that form of, it's, you know, that if they still are benefiting by that, they're going to finish out their lifetime in 3. And there's going to be a gradual process. It's not like everybody's going to wake up all at once. That doesn't happen. Nonetheless, there are significant jumps by specific groups who are going to go in kind of larger groups. And many of us are gathering now. So I know that I lead one of those. And within that large group are a number of other smaller ones. And it's not important for you to understand everything right now. Hang on. So we're definitely going to talk about group dynamics. The lower triangle is the one that stabilizes the top one. The higher vibration, the ones that takes most of its operating system, gets it from the weight of the triangle is at the top, you know, have it's pointed down. The triangle that's pointed down derives most of its operating system, most of its, the way it operates. We take that from the cosmos. We're coming from that perspective. And we are accustomed to sharing everything automatically because everything is automatically shared. You never even, we have to be conditioned into not doing that. We have to be taught that boundaries. Most of the people coming from a 3rd dimensional perspective and going up, it's kind of like they're used to limitation. They are accustomed to it. They like boundaries. They like structure, a great deal of order. It's very compressed. It's very linear, and everything goes one at a time. And when people live in that model, and we have been conditioned that way too, throughout history, and we're just getting out of it now. It's kind of like being at the bottom of a well and looking up and seeing just this teeny little piece of the sky and thinking that's all there is. And that's not true. But when somebody who's accustomed to that and they derive their security from it, hang on. They view they view the speed and the energy with which the high realms, when the higher realms come in, they will tell us that we have no boundaries. They think we're very overfamiliar. They think we move too fast, talk too fast, are too much. But they like the giving aspect. So all we're doing really is changing the geometry. But changing the geometry, hang on a minute, I said that wrong. Is we're changing the geometry to go through the 11 gateway, but we're also still staying in the Solomon seal also. So I think I'm going to get back to that a different day. Each group offers things, has something special to offer the other one. Really, it's about uniting polarities. I don't like the way this is coming out. I had intended to structure it, and I'm kind of fighting with them now. I'm not explaining it the way I wanted to explain it. But they're saying it has more to do with energetic flow. I know a lot of you are waiting to hear what I said. I said I got a download, and I did. So maybe I'll just start with that. 2-3 days ago, I was extremely annoyed with stasis. I've been stuck here for a very long time, and I've known that things are coming, and it's just not happening. I've been very irritated. I really wanted to see some actual progress. My guides have been telling me for a long time that something is coming, and I can tell. I can just tell something is coming, something's coming. It's a particular energy stream that I recognize. My guides told me that what they're trying to do, if you imagine the tips of these triangles trying to get to one another, it's like trying to line up tips of triangles. Not quite as sharp as a needle, but it's like knitting needles, like they're trying to line up a point and get these two things aligned. And I have been getting the message for a really long time, months, that I really had to slow down. It's not the first time I've had this message. I will say this. When I was in graduate school, I had a teacher named Martha who gave us a exercise one day. She handed out index cards, and she told everybody to draw a long line and a short line. And this was a graduate school also where, especially in that class, the emphasis was not on self-expression. The emphasis, especially in that class, was on absolute accuracy. So we would be doing life drawing or any kind of drawing, and the emphasis was on accuracy. So she gave us this little exercise one day to draw a long line and a short line on an index card. And Everyone did that. And we didn't have to hand them in or anything. She said it was just for us to know ourselves. It was a very good exercise because she said there are some people who are going to draw, who are kind of levelers, and they tend toward leveling a difference. So the long line will be not quite take up the, go off the edge of the paper. But there will be relatively little difference between their long line and their short line. There are other people who tend to exaggerate it, where their long line will go from corner to corner and the short line will, be very little in the middle. And she said that would be an example of someone who exaggerates a difference. It's not that there's one that's better or worse, but it is very important to know where your natural tendency is. Because if your aim is accuracy and you're looking for where you went off and you can't figure it out, the chances are that you did the thing that you always tend to do. So start there if you're looking for your own error. And it was a really good lesson. And it applies to this. Those of us who have an operating system where we're coming from the top down and we derive the basis of our understanding from the way the cosmos works, and we were born awake and we remember instant manifestation, we know the way imagination works, we can visualize things very easily, we know the way manifestation works, and we automatically share because we automatically recognize ourselves in every last other thing. We tend toward what those in the other triangle would say oversharing. We give everything goes out, and our boundaries are constantly fluctuating. We have to learn what we're aiming for to come into balance is more structure. The structured people who take the basis of their operating system is coming from the physical world. This also includes those who were maybe star seeds, but they were heavily conditioned. If you're coming out of the conditioning, but you're still rigidly kind of fixed in it, I would probably include you while you're in that mindset. I would include you in the lower triangle until you get back out of it. But it happens to a lot of people. It's not a judgment. The people who are heavily anchored, who have been heavily anchored in the lower triangle, they want to see something before they step. They want to see something before they believe it. That is actually creation in reverse. The reason they don't have a lot of creative power is the same way, is because you must get out of that belief system before you start creating in energy. Creation works energy down. The energy and the vision happens prior to something coming into form. So if you're waiting for something to be created before you place any faith in it, you're always going to be on the wrong side of history. Wrong being relative. If you like that, then that's right for you. But the reason so many of these, it relates to the system of the structure of society, which has been built on history. It's like the legal system is backwards, very often unjust. One of the reasons it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, or I should say it works for 3, but it doesn't work this way in 5. It could never work this way in 5. In the 5th dimension, everyone's motivation is already seen, and you need to argue nothing. You don't have to prove anything. You're fully transparent. And if there is an injustice or an imbalance, it will self-correct, and it's obvious. It's obvious when somebody did something wrong. And if there would be an apology, something would happen. It's much more self-leveling. But a lot of these systems, social structures, just are going to be readjusted, like the educational system. and the legal system, everything's going to change. So where was I? Somebody said, oh, wait a minute. Let me finish this point. Sorry. So my guides had been telling me that I needed to hold still. So since I'm bringing I'm in, what's the word? Help. Basically, it's like I'm bringing the top triangle down. They're trying to get the tips of the triangles to line up. So the top triangle moves really, 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 really fast, especially compared to the lower triangle. So what they're trying to get the top triangle to do is hold still. They kept telling me, you just got to hold still. They told me that I was going to gain weight and not to worry about it. It's serving a purpose. They're like, they really want me to be less frantically active and constantly doing. It feels abnormal to me. I'm always leaving, and a lot of you are this way too. Like now is it ready now? Can we go now? Okay, I'll sit here and be patient. Now I keep doing this. And I've seen a lot of people in this community because we see what's coming and we're very eager to get there. And we're also very eager for the suffering of our people to stop. And we know that when we all get there, it's going to be that much better. So they want the lower triangle, those in the lower triangle, to take a much more active approach. And they told me, in terms of the system, that there's something coming in for me personally that's going to affect all of you who are listening. There was something that I was working on that did not go forward in this lifetime the way it was supposed to. A group of people and I we came down intending to buy a school in Rifton, New York. And I'll be talking about it at some point. At some point later on, there's a specific body of information. Some of it having to do with anagrams, but not all of it. There's just a certain body of information that I don't feel like I'm really at liberty to address right now. But we had to go to a plan B. That's not working the way it was supposed to. We were very heavily attacked, and the resources were not able to get, we couldn't close the circuit enough to secure that property. We rerouted a lot of the ley lines to go through a different property. And I know I'm going to get back to talking about that school when the other information is released later, but I can't do that yet. So they've told me to hold still. For a long time. So they told me to hold still, and I also have I have fibromyalgia, for those of you who know, and I really don't like cannabis myself personally, and I do understand. I really don't want to get into a long discussion about marijuana, and I please don't send me a whole bunch of messages. It seems to me that people who do use medical marijuana or any marijuana, they seem to always really want other people, strongly encourage other people to use it. I know that it does, open the gateway. I know it does do that. It makes my system crash. A lot of people use it to open the gateway and go up. It does open gateways, but my vibration is usually much more comfortable up there already. And I've only ever tried it 3 times, but and the last 2 it was medical marijuana. I don't like it. But my guides were telling me to use it for a reason. For this particular gateway, they said they used the term forced surrender because we were at an impasse. The person who is leading the triangle up and me who's leading the triangle down. There was a stalemate. There were powerful forces and neither one was budging. And remember when I said the tip of the triangle, I was like right there. And we talked about, how it relates to Joan of Arc, the virginity, there was so much conflict there still. And we talked about, that I'm transmuting with a negative alteration of Mary, whatever, that the virginity aspect was so massive that I am merely carrying it, or have been carrying it. But this has nothing to do with me personally. I mean, it does. I'm in it too, but the forces were larger than me is the point. So my guides have been hinting. You know the way this works. If you have guides, you listen to them. My guides have been pressing me to use cannabis for a while, and I have not done it because I don't like it. I also have PTSD, and I don't like to be unaware. I like to remain vigilant. I just like it. So the pain got very bad the other day, and they told me I was really getting this message that we had reached an impasse. And plus I know that these two gateways have got to open. Like the top one coming up from underneath, that one has got to open. I mentioned that in a previous live stream. The other gateway is the point down, and that one had to open too. So they said you should use cannabis because I need to relax. The tension got really extreme, and I was really resisting because there's also just something about me that I don't use drugs. I just nothing. I'm a purist. I prefer it. It's less of a judgment. It's just, for me personally, it's just not something I like. But my guides were really adamant. And then I woke up with a terrible neck ache, and I woke up with specific ailments that I recognized from just refusing to turn, like I refuse to look in this direction, etc. It's like I can read my own body. I know what things mean. So I said, fine, I will take the medical marijuana. And I went and I got the prescription, and they told me that I had to hold still. There was a specific thing 2 nights ago, and they said, I felt it approaching too. It's like I have known for a long time that they wanted to do something to me. And it was making me so I knew they would, and they wouldn't tell me what, which was making me more apprehensive. Sometimes I'm very well connected to my guides, and I trust their judgment. I also know when they're not showing me something on purpose. That happens a lot. 2 things about that. One, I know, like in some of these space meetings, there will be something that comes down and covers my one eye, and I know it's because they're doing something they don't want me to see. One of the reasons they don't want me to see it is because my role in this, the job that I'm supposed to be doing, is that a messenger and channel, and I say everything I know. There's nothing, I have made my own commitment to full transparency. So if I know it, I'm going to say it. So one thing they do is hide things. They prevent me from seeing things until it's time for me to know it. Because as soon as it comes through, it's going to come out, and so if they don't want you to know something, they won't show me. I do know that, for example, the last time this happened, we were at a space meeting, and I could tell that there were certain other people within my energetic construct who were having a conversation about me that they didn't want me to hear. And I even knew who was talking. It was Josh talking with somebody else, a masculine figure, but I didn't know who it was. But they were talking over there, and there's like a wall that goes up. I sense it. And I knew that I have the ability, if I wanted to, I could go in and I could hear through his ears. I could be there too. I could totally get that information. I won't do it though. And they know that about me. And that's the thing. Everything is known about everybody. There is no hiding. So, but there is. So like I can feel some of you get worried about that. Like, well, what if I want to be alone when I go to the bathroom? What there is respect for somebody's boundaries though. So there's full transparency, meaning you have to be able to withstand full transparency. But that doesn't mean that you must share with everybody else, not necessarily everything. For example, do you remember when I said in one of the earlier live streams that, let me phrase this differently. You know, when you're first learning energy healing and certain modalities, like beginning modalities like Reiki, will say you must get each person's permission. That's essential. That's true, because you don't trespass on somebody else's free will. Later on, when you get your own, there's going to be a point where you are your own modality, and you're going to leave all systems thinking. Later on, systems, the structured modalities, such as Reiki has a very linear quality. It's very strongly structured. Any of the very structured approaches that have kind of a like 1 foot in strong, rigid structure and 1 foot in with a strong spiritual component, those are bridge modalities. They're designed to ease people from a place of severe limitation and darkness, to get them to go and discover energy healing, discover God for the first time. This is like the beginning foray. There's going to be another level after that where you become your own modality. It starts with, maybe if you were a Reiki master, you would go off and make your own version of Reiki, or start combining various modalities, but you become a lot more flexible. And then later on, you yourself will be your own, you will probably develop your own modality, or simply be a modality yourself and just heal other people automatically. That homeostasis from a strong vibrational platform. Where was I going with this? So a lot of us do that now, and that's definitely upcoming. Eventually, the whole medical system is going to be taken over by those of us who do this, where you just visualize someone well, you have that knowing, and it happens because you're in a you're no longer attached to the timeline. And you're no longer attached to the idea that something must undergo a certain procedure in order to be well. You have instant manifestation and you can command form and you merely speak it into existence. You know it into existence. The tumor is gone, the person is well, etc. And everything is in the now moment. But you have to be off the timeline and out of the belief system in order for that to happen. So that's why there are a lot of these bridge modalities that are heavily into lineage and structure, because you have to meet your population where they are. So a very 3D based, highly conditioned, highly structured belief system that it is this way. This is the way it is. The world works this way. Someone who's very anchored there requires a modality that can reach them where they are, that will lead them out into greater expansion. And those of us who are coming from the other side, our challenge is to get ourselves condensed into a structure. So that's the process that I'm kind of in right now. So the point that I was making was that I have been having a very difficult time getting the amount of because two things have to happen simultaneously. If it was just the one thing, it would be easier. But it's actually two things have to happen that are in opposition toward another. They have to happen simultaneously. And both of them are large groups. So the conversation, I'm sorry, I'm aware I've got about 5 different trains of thought. In the future, and now here's 6. In the future, once we're in 5, one of the reasons it's going to be a ton easier is because I will be able to simply have a fully formed idea or my own comprehensive knowing of something, my full understanding of something, and I'll be able to simply throw it to you fully formed and you can catch it. And when you get it, I'll know. It's beautiful. And I have had these experiences. Like I used to communicate with my children this way, when particularly Cricket when she was little, and Calico too. Like I remember thinking something and knowing when they got it upstairs. And sometimes sometimes you have to our connection was very strong. Sometimes you wish that you could keep something a secret. Like it was very hard to keep Christmas presents, surprises could be challenging. Sometimes you want someone to not know what's in the box after you've gone shopping. And what I learned to do when my kids were very, very little, because they would pick up on things, I could think something and they would get it, and I'd think, shit, they just got that. This wasn't something I had intended to say, but it's true. I will just tell you. One time I went shopping. It was the winter, and I didn't want them to see the ice cream. I wanted to save it for a different time, so I left it in the car. And I went inside, and the following morning, my kids were upstairs and I was in the kitchen. I suddenly remembered that the ice cream was in the car. And as soon as I thought it, I could tell that my daughter Calico had picked up that thought. And so there was no sneaking it in the house. I could tell. I thought, oh, she just got that. And then I heard steps upstairs, and she came down. She said, didn't you say you were going to get ice cream at the store? Didn't you buy ice cream? I thought, shit, she got that. It's true. Anyway, there's going to be a point where I'm going to be talking about children and telepathy, the development of telepathy, what has to happen, and also how we can reach autistic children. Stop trying to mainstream them. If the parental figure, if the more conditioned one goes up and learns telepathy, you're going to have much better success. And we need to bring animals back into classrooms big time. Anyway, But where was I going with this? Hang on. So get used to loose structure, because in the fifth dimension, the structure is still, there's still going to be enough structure. It's not going to be completely free formed. You know, I'm always saying it's like a murmuration of starlings, and it is. It very much is. But it's not going to be completely formless. We also want to make sure that everyone else gets there. Oh, so I did use the medical marijuana I woke up with a pain that was really severe. And I said, fine, I'll test it. I did not have a good night. It was okay, but I recognized what was happening. And the words that they kept saying was forced surrender. They said, we basically forced you into this position. The gateway opened, and I was uncomfortable, but it's okay. We've merged the points. So one thing they've told me is that, I'm sorry, let me go back and finish a couple of the things I started to say earlier. In the space meetings, I recognize, and I know a lot of you are, I see you there. And then in the morning, we come on Facebook and we're like, you were there, and I know. Hi, Andrew. Andrew and I see each other at space meetings. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but I see you there. So I was aware that they didn't want me to hear something. And I know that they do this to me a lot. The reason they do this to me is because, and that's the wrong way to say it. There are sometimes, this is really true. Sometimes my guides handle me. I'm just very aware, you know, when you're being handled, like they handle me like I'm a bomb. They really do. They know, and here's why. You're going to understand this. If you follow my work, if you follow Ascension, you'll understand why this could happen. Because it's not just about me personally, it's about the entire group of people that I'm connected to. So if you're very, very empathic, and you're all trading thoughts and you're all trading feelings immediately, and you have instant creation, right? You think something and there's very near instant manifestation. You need to watch out for things that could emotionally trigger, that would give it like a startle response, or something that you're scared of, or I don't know how to pronounce, I don't know how to present all of this material. There's an awful lot of it. It will be so much easier if we could get it. I keep thinking if we could get it into a loose structure, because I know that I'm not reaching the people in 3 who have, or 4 who are on the 5D timeline but don't have a background in this stuff. I know that you don't understand what I'm talking about. And at some point, it is going to be structured in such a way. I experience not only my own emotions, but I also experience the emotions of all the people that are in my group, because I am one of those mega transmuters. I'm connected to an enormous, multiple groups of people. Not all of them harmonize well with one another. So one of the jobs of a transmuter is to balance as the energy runs through you. The reason if these words are reaching your ears, is because you are going to be stepping forward in this capacity in some way yourself. when you're stepping into a realm of a new kind of creating, where you're creating with energies first that will subsequently materialize into form. You have to be careful of how you do it. There's going to be a tendency, because we're coming, we're emerging from a period of time where we were heavily conditioned to stick to the traditional way of doing something. And many of us have built up kind of a groove in our mind, a belief system that says certain things have to be done a certain order. This is the right way to do it. Sometimes that's toward a purpose. It's a very useful thing to have in your toolkit or have knowledge of. But there is there will be, let me say it this way. Hang on. There is, I guess there is. A likelihood, there's going to be a habitual tendency to lean toward going on autopilot and doing things automatically the way that you've always done them, or your parents always did them, or you were taught to do it this way. And if your mind isn't on it, if you're going in autopilot, you're going to tend to have the same reaction every time. That brings me back to the issue of the two lines on the piece of paper. It's important to know about yourself what your normal tendency will be. If you're going to err, it's going to be in a certain direction, usually. Not necessarily. It's possible for me to, to do something, make an opposite error, or overcorrect, maybe. I know that for myself, if I err, when I err, it is almost always on the side of being premature because of where I come from. I always think everything is happening now, or ready, or, I will sit down at a table ready to eat dinner, when it hasn't even gone in the oven yet. Because I see that it's inevitable, and it's like it's on the same day, and I'm hungry, so I want it now. And I can smell the gravy, whatever. It's just important to know your own tendencies, because we're aiming for balance. So the reason that my guides don't want me to know certain things, number one, they don't want you to know certain things until the time is right. So sometimes they're going to tell me certain things, and they will say specifically, don't say all of it. But I know that it's just they want me to delay the information. I've been given information that I know I'm going to tell you, but they're like, not yet. Wait until, just hold on to that for a while. They tell me things on a need to know basis. So the information that I know I'm going to be giving you, I need to know it now, but I'm not to deliver it yet. And after now I understand why that's the case. So if they shield me, like if I go to a space meeting, the last one I went to was actually a while ago. It was like, I don't know, 2 months ago, something like that. I could tell that someone was having a conversation with somebody else that they didn't, and I knew that they were talking about me. They don't want me to hear this particular thing. And I know that I could have gone around, I could have heard it if I wanted to. And am I curious? Yeah. But I do respect boundaries enough to know that if they don't want me to know, I actually have an idea. This was a man I know who didn't want me to, it was Josh. Josh didn't want me to know something. And because I respect that boundary, I wasn't going to pry. It was enough to know that he preferred privacy on that particular topic. So I left it. My guides do this with me with certain things where they know in advance what my reaction is going to be. So they are anticipating, and since they know me, I trust them. They are here to keep me safe. We have the same aim. We have the same aim. So I trust my guides. I trust my angels. I trust that they're going to keep me safe. Their job is not to make me comfortable, though. That's a huge error in thinking. Your spirit guide's job is to make sure you stay on your soul contract. Your spirit guide's job is to bring you closer to the expansiveness of knowing God more fully, but that doesn't mean that they're going to help you stay in your comfort zone. In fact, spiritual awakening is everything but that. What they're going to do, a spiritual awakening will trigger every last place that you could be triggered, every place where you are getting into fear. A good, wrong, I phrased that wrong. I was about to say a good angel or a good spirit guide. The ones who belong with you will support you in your inquiry. That's the way I want to say it. Your inquiry and your spiritual searching. That's what they are here to help you with. I do ask that you follow the questioning. It is the questioning must be real too. We just took the whole conversation, just took another turn. I feel like we're going to go back to the other topic of conversation in a minute. Whoops. Okay, so I feel like we're going to go back to that in a bit. This call is already not what I expected it would be. I will tie up the add one little last thing to that story. When they don't want me to know something, I have learned, I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but I have learned to trust it. I do know that they're expecting me to flinch about something. There's something that's coming in that I'm not saying my fear is warranted. I actually believe that it is unwarranted. My fear is not warranted. Nonetheless, there's something coming in that, because of my own personal history, is going to cause me a likely, let's say it that way, because I don't want to be predictive about it. It's likely to cause me a automatic fear, like there's something I don't want to do, and I sense what it is. I know it's coming. I've known that it's coming for a long time. And so the other day when I was getting my IV, for those of you who don't know, I go twice a week to get iron infusions, and they put you in a silent room, and I get a reclining chair, and I never watch television ever as a matter of principle. So the TV was off and it's dead silent, which is great. That's exactly what my guide wanted. So I got all these downloads, all these messages from spirit. A download, for those of you who don't know, is a comprehensive body of information, or a stream of information, which will be put directly into your head, fully formed. It's kind of a broad form of telepathy or information, but it comes in a large quantity, and it's kind of dropped in, and it's like suddenly knowing the full contents of a book as opposed to having to read it. When you can, this is a little bit of an aside, but when our telepathic network is fully operational, we will have the ability to exchange information with other people in the network. So say, for example, which is fantastic. Say, for example, you have Patrick Stewart, who is in your soul group or in your network, and you don't know anything about Shakespeare, but you kind of, one day you wish you knew it. You know it. Wish you knew it, or English. And if I have a need for something, when the telepathic network is fully operational, if I have a need to know something, it is suddenly pulled in from whoever has it. So this is something, so hang on a minute. I want to talk about this in a second. The way group dynamics, energetic circuitry of group dynamics. I want to get to that in a minute. But first, I want to talk a little bit about more about telepathy. When children are born, they are fully telepathic and connected to their parents because children are born with that ability fully established. Over time, the conditioning will close down. We're conditioned to close down and lose that capacity and focus more. We're taught that we have to do certain things a given way. That's not true. In fact, a much more quantum, there's like quantum telepathy, where you just get the number of variables is enormous. Everything's constantly moving, constantly adjusting, and you can take an entire body of information and suddenly pass it to somebody. So if I needed, one day, I wished I knew something about Shakespeare, I could, as soon as my mind opened to that, nature abhors a vacuum, and whoever had that information, let's say it's Patrick Stewart, I would get whatever I needed from, I could tap his knowledge as though it were my own, because I have an understanding that he is another aspect of me. That's true. And so we get to, in the fifth dimension, everyone just functions this way, where if I have something, we live in a state of automatically sharing everything we are and everything we have. And it works very much like breathing. The reason that the QFS or the QRS, quantum financial system, quantum resource system, works, it is because it works in a much more natural way, where you're not dependent on a single source. You're not dependent on, because that can always be pinched off, right? It works very much like breathing, where you're not thinking ever about shortage or where's my next breath going to come from. If you can't get, there's enough oxygen in the air and it's all around you. So all you have to do is breathe. You get as much as you need at any given time, and you exhale all of the excess. And it's not your job to keep track of who uses the oxygen that you breathed out. And there's just perpetual exchange. Once we're all in the fifth dimension, this is actually the way everything works. And everyone does go along just diving in to assist wherever there is a need from whatever they happen to have. This isn't even remotely what I was going to talk about when I opened this call. Somebody did say, I'm changing the subject slightly. Somebody wanted to know how what I was saying relates to the populace that is you, the groups that are you. I want to go back to the anagrams. So I have this job I've had this job for a long time, but it's not a job that I will have forever. I'm here to do a specific job. I have been carrying a certain body of information and a certain body of energy, and it needs to be redistributed. That's why they said, they had talked about that I have a guaranteed audience for either a book or, but now we've moved into a different, strata. So it's going to be more difficult now for me to be linear enough to write a book. I could still probably do it. It's easier to deliver large quantities of information or larger transmissions via live stream. But somebody had asked me about the place of this group. You know, the people who are following me on Facebook. So in a previous live stream, I had talked about, every force evolves a form. I talked a little bit about anagrams, what those are, and the way they form. Nothing ever, ever, ever is a coincidence. It doesn't work that way. There is no such thing as a coincidence. So I'm here to do something very specific, but I'm not doing it alone. In past incarnations, everyone gave, let me rephrase that. There was a large group of people who kind of handed their power to the church or to various control systems. Also, Joan of Arc we gave it to leaders. That served a purpose. And at some point, I'm going to be talking about the archons, the fourth dimension, archangels, and the way that has worked. I don't think that I'm going to do that today. I wasn't told to deliver that particular information. But we're definitely going to be talking about detaching from icons. Definitely detaching from icons, but we're not going to do that just yet. I do know that it's approaching. We're going through a process where each person in this group is moving up a level of spiritual maturity. And with spiritual maturity, every time you move up a level, you gain more responsibility. You're given automatically. It's a requirement that you take more responsibility for the care and nurture, the wise stewardship of not only other people, but the entire world around you. As we step up a level, we gain more responsibility for others. You remember, I don't know if I know I posted it. I don't know if I mentioned it in the live stream. For years, this is the way it works for me. And I will preface this by saying that one of the reasons I'm talking so much about my own experience, my guides have told me that the way I am meant to, I don't like referring to it as a light army. It's less of an army now, and it needs to become more of an orchestra. But they have said that I am to lead by example, and we're going into a level of into a strata of service that requires us to be much more fully transparent and take a lot of our social armor off, while simultaneously stepping up in service. So my guides have said that I am to just go through my process in public transparently, be honest about what's going on, allow people to view the way I handle it, which is why I know I'm going to get triggered. See, that's a thing. I can tell that that's upcoming. Certain things are going to come up for me that make me very uncomfortable, and I'm going to, and I don't know when it's going to happen. I know that they're going to drop it on me probably sometime when I'm in a live stream. Like, yeah, I already know that's going to happen. So every time they want me to do a live stream, I'm like, is this it? Is this like you're going to make me lose it? But certain things, well, like it happened a little bit on the other live stream, where you know, suddenly I just was moved to tears. That's going to happen more. There are going to be a couple, at least a couple, of triggering events that I know that my guides are handling me like a bomb, because they know that I have certain areas, certain things that, man, I do not want to talk about it. Like, it's PTSD is no joke. A lot of us in this group are triggered by the same things, like we feel it and we don't want to do this again. And we are trying to make peace out of extreme conflict. There are certain things that don't naturally go together. There has been a lot of trauma. A lot of things are about to be disclosed or are being disclosed that are going to cause very emotional reactions, understandably emotional reactions from the general population. So it's going to require two things have to happen. It has to be handled carefully. The lower triangle has, as a gift of theirs, I mean, we like to say that they confine us, right? But they have as a gift stability. We need to merge with them to take advantage of a certain amount of their stability, because we're gonna need it if the top triangle, all of those of us who are more or less in 5 and have instant manifestation, if we all suddenly get triggered at something, we don't have access to that same kind of stability, or we fly off the handle, our reactions are very fast. We run the risk. There is the potential of tanking ourselves real quick. If you think of instant manifestation and a thought is instantly transmitted whole to everybody and everyone gets a fear reaction, it can really cause you to crash en masse. So we don't want that. So those of us who are anchoring in 5 are connecting with others who have the ability to transmute, because we're all going to be transmuting for one another. And that work, there's a mechanism by which this happens. We're going to be incorporating lower frequencies, but it has to be done on, we're watching the ratio very carefully of lower and higher. We're monitoring the way certain things are introduced to make sure it kind of doesn't overload the system. So we want to make sure that the levels of the things that could trigger us are delivered in such a way that the percentage is small, so that everyone can transmute a little bit at a time. So what that means is you have to really know, keep an eye on what's happening with your own emotional climate. It's really incredibly important. That's going to be the skill set. When you know yourself, you have to be in a place where you're not blaming any external source for your emotional well-being. If you do that and you start to, that we run the risk, those of us in 5, we run the risk of accidentally recreating conflict. We will recreate conflict if we feel a negative, if we pick up, even if it's not ours, if we pick up a negative feeling and we don't identify what our role is in it. Are we here to transmute it or is it ours? If we mishandle a negative emotional reaction and we point fingers and we say it was that person, or we jump to an accusation, or we have in our mind something that says, that identifies another party as to blame. Even, you know, these facts are going to come out. And we know that we didn't do it. We can identify the culprit, whatever, but we need to have an ability to hear something without jumping to accusation and fueling that. If you're fueling conflict or fueling accusation or fueling blame, you're going to wind up making more of whatever side of the scale you're contributing to. Whatever ocean you are contributing to, that's the ocean you're going to swim in. So we run the risk, even when we have done our work and we manage to get up to 5 and we're with a group of people, there is just the potential of, because we're coming out of an area where we've been conditioned to blame an external source. We need to watch that. Be aware of that. Most of us will have that tendency, at least sometimes, or there will be a tendency in the group, at least until the new becomes really dominant. So my guides have been telling me that something is coming in, and I'm pretty sure I know what it is. I don't really want to say, but I know that I have a real issue with fame. I haven't wanted it, and at all. I really don't want to be seen. There's something that has to be carefully handled. My guides are very well aware, because I'm transparent to them. They know exactly where my fear lies. So it's their job to coax me and get me through where I had, not avoid it. Their job is to help me negotiate it safely and thoroughly. So I know that, and so I also know that the group of people that I've been connecting to are also here to help stabilize the reaction that is potentially going to be initiated from me when this thing comes in. I'm going to do my level best to remain steady myself. Part of me knows what it is. I don't know who it's coming through. I think the reason I don't know who it's coming through exactly is because I'm going to flinch. They don't want me to flinch. I just know that this already. They're going to drop something. They're going to drop something. And they have told me not to worry. They have told me this. They have said that there is an incoming network of distribution. The same way I've been building a network from the top down, this person, whoever it is, has a net, or it could be somebody who's going to introduce me to someone else. But there's a pre-made network of groups that are going to link up and suddenly become a big network. And it's going to link to me. So somebody who has, for example, me, I've been told that there is, my guides have said, that there is global karmic fame, and Aluna Ash picked up on this too. There's karmic fame coming because there's a part of my own history that I would rather never repeat. But this is exactly the thing that needs to be met and undone by applying the inverse wave. So this is why it's also your job. So I'm going to do two things. I want to tell you why it's your job, but I also want to read the rest of the anagrams so the first time when I read the anagrams, I read my anagrams, the ones that are just my name. This information is available on my blog, but I think I'm just going to go over it here because it does relate to all of you. In the Joan of Arc lifetime, but more than that, that's not the only lifetime they've done this. Those of you who haven't heard the previous live streams, I'm going to be referencing certain things that I did already talk about. So they're long and rambling, but maybe just go back and listen anyway. Okay. People gave Joan of Arc her power, their power, and every savior figure. It serves a purpose. It served a purpose at the time. The times that we were in were incredibly dense, and we could only reach that population by coming down in a specific form. And the way that it helped was because if you can create a central character and a kind of like a containment vessel to pull everyone up, who allowed it? You have to allow this. That serves a purpose, but then you definitely don't. It's number one, it's not comfortable. It's not the end goal at all. What you want is, you don't want to be as a leader who has all of the power. That's the last thing you want. When you have children, you want your children to grow up and be, parents themselves or adults themselves, competent adults. So the power is meant to go back to the population. You are the collective body of God. You are the ones who take the actions. It is not meant to be some miraculous invisible force that happens. Can it be that way? Yes. But that doesn't help you, does it? If you identify with Christ and you want to become that as well, all this and more you will do. That was the intention all along, is to create other miracle makers who know how to do that, who heal themselves. So we'll be talking about this. But before that happens, you can't give that kind of creative power to spiritual infants. That kind of ability requires wise and full stewardship of all others. And you no longer have the luxury of thinking of just yourself. You must think of everyone. Some of you may have read my blog post on this already, for years, decades now. One of the things I really like that happens with me every morning, it's been happening this way since college, long before I knew anything about Joan of Arc or anything about I didn't know what my path was. I was in art school. And, but every morning, right before I wake up, you know, I'll sleep the whole night, but right before I wake up, I'm always given I wake up the same way every day. Two things happen. One, I get an aerial view of a garden. There's a particular garden that's my garden, and it's always the aerial view. And it's full of all sorts of things which have been planted and that I've been nurturing. And every last one of these things represents a different group. And it's not, and I just need to know the condition of them. It's like my job to keep them well and safe. And even if I don't go down and tend to them myself, I just need to know that everyone is doing well for whatever they're doing. I am given, before I wake up, the aerial view of like that day's garden. This is how everyone's doing. And sometimes it represents a group that I don't even necessarily have contact with, but I just, for some reason, my energy is just somehow involved in nurture on some level. Somewhere they want me to know how everything's doing. Like there's a head of cabbage in the garden that always represents my ex-husband's family, who I don't even see so much anymore, but it always represents them. And I see that the cabbage is growing and I know that they're okay. And there's all sorts of different vegetables and stalks of things, and it always represents various groups. And I'm given this along with a song. There's a song in my head every morning that will tell me some kind of message for the day. I always get it that way for decades. And sometimes there will be something in the morning garden. Like one time, I remember when my kids were little, really little, and the morning garden that morning had my guides knew I wanted to do something. Like sometimes everything's going really, really well, and which is what you want. You want that. But I saw my morning garden. There was just nobody needed tending. Everything was doing super, except there was a little area in one of the beds where it looked like static. And so my attention was drawn there, and I looked at it, and my guides told me, this is while I was still asleep, my guides told me that there was something there, that there was a puddle, a vernal pool. You know what a vernal pool is? Are those pools that they show up in spring? It's like a little temporary pond, and frogs will lay their eggs, and gradually it dries up because it's not usually that wet. And it will gradually dry up, and the puddle will get smaller and smaller. But there was this vernal pool, apparently. And in my dream, in my morning garden before I woke up, something looked like static. And my guides told me specifically that when I woke up that day, I was to go to an area of the woods. They showed me right where it was. And they said, there's something there that needs your attention. That's your job. That's your job today. And I didn't really know what it was at the time. But I went there. I was very dutiful. I got up and got dressed, and I went in the woods, and right where they said it was this little vernal pool, and it was drying up, but it was teeming with tadpoles. There are tons and tons and tons of tadpoles, and they were dying or they were about to die because the water was drying up. And my guides told me, you can go save those. And they told me this because they said, we knew you were bored. After I got them in a bucket, I went and I scooped them all up into a bucket of pond water, and I saved them all, and I took them to a different pond that had plenty of water, and I released them. And my guides came in and said, we told you this because we knew you were bored, and you like to, it makes you happy to be kind of a savior figure, and you go in and you scoop up a whole population that needs your help. I just like that kind of thing. So they said, we gave that to you because we know that you are bored and you want something fun to do. So that's why they gave me all the tadpoles to save. Your guides know you exactly They know exactly everywhere you carry a fear. They know what you want. They know where your issues are. And if you learn the way spirit communicates, which is different from the way people communicate, and it's not the way the Bible says it either. I'm not saying the Bible is 100% wrong, but it sure isn't 100% right. That thing has been sorely tampered with. So we're definitely going to talk about that too. Spirit communication, the way it works, the magic, and the magic in it. We're definitely going to talk about that. Because every force evolves a form, and nothing is random. Nothing is ever random. There are no coincidences, whatever, ever. So, and we have the experience of time, but time is also extremely flexible. You're going to experience time, the timeline, according to how rigidly your belief system believes in it. Time travel is absolutely possible, and you don't even need a machine. What you need to do is get off the timeline. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about, it's already longer than I thought it was going to be. I want to talk about the Ascension arc and the anagrams in that, because that's going to inform you about your role. You could also, if you're interested in learning more about how you yourself will personally participating in this entire process, begin by asking your guides. Begin by asking yourself. Ask yourself what you want your role to be. And just begin strident, genuine inquiry. Most of your education is going, if you aren't given something by your guides that's dropped into your head, and if that's the case, if that's the case, feel around for how it makes you feel. Because you are going to be your own judge, or your own best guide there. Hi, what are you doing? How come you moved down my arm? This is very uncomfortable. You should go back on my shoulder, I think. Hi. Can I get you to come back up, please? Thanks. So the Ascension arc. So, you know, my guides told me in 2013 that I was going to have to change my name, my middle name. And they told me specifically that I needed to step into this role again in order to apply the inverse wave. So in the Joan of Arc lifetime, certain things happened that affected the group in a very big way. Groups, multiple groups in a very big way. And it set certain energetic waves in motion in space, and patterns have been repeating and repeating and repeating. And not all the patterns are good. Some of them are really not. So in order to bring that back to 0 point where we can create something new, we need to apply the inverse wave, because that's going to, it will collapse the wave into a flat line. That's what we want. So that we can then create from a fresh slate. That's what we want. So my guides told me to change my name, and I went through all of my anagrams. An anagram is what happens when you rearrange all of the letters in a given, the name of an institution or a person. Or anything. You can see what the energy, what the hidden energy is. You can see what's actually going on. The underlying energetic influences of a given thing. A lot of it is going to sound like gibberish. The vast majority of it's worth checking your anagrams to see what's there. Most people, you know, they will have like maybe 1 or 2 significant things. You can get the sense as to whether the words contained in something are more or less positive or negative, or if there's a dominant theme going. How? If you are somebody who came in with a very, very singular, specific soul mission, it's going to show up in your anagrams. So you can do this with organizations. You can do it with, anyway, mine turned out to be extremely specific, and there are a lot of them, to the point where I almost didn't do it. Really scared the crap out of me. So when, but then I did. So I stepped into my role, which they knew I was going to do anyway. I just had to get some of the resistance out of the way. I had a lot of resistance. They told me that basically I'm a vessel. I'm like a big vessel. And I came in with a soul mission, not just in this lifetime, in previous lifetimes too. This has been building up for a long time. Hurry up, please. To gather a lot of these energetic strands. And then when I pull up, I act as a tugboat, and I pull a lot of other people up with me. And then once we get there, everyone gets all the power back that they took. We sever all the cords, and everybody, we're connected on a much more lateral way. That's what we want. I'm aiming for equality. So one of the reasons my guides have said, one of the reasons that I was selected, I've got certain predispositions toward liking equality. I really, really like equality. I'm also Arcturian. We're very old. We have a certain kind of structure that we are very group oriented. So they said it was kind of safe to give me this role, because it has to go to somebody who really, really, really does not want to maintain control or leadership, where I got the abilities, but my goal is genuinely to give it back, because I don't want everybody's stuff, like for real. So my name is Stephanie R. Kogarth. I'm a ship. And also I had an interesting vision in, I don't know, that was quite a while ago, where okay. One moment, please. Yeah, that's something that I didn't approve. Hang on a minute. She just walked in with a guinea pig. I didn't know we were getting. Do me a favor, please, right now. Please go in the bedroom and let me finish my live stream, and you and I will talk after. Pretty sure you can hear me. Okay. I'll talk to you after. She just walked in with a guinea pig in a cage. I was not expecting a guinea pig in a cage. All right. So I was told that the group, that it was the name of the book, the name of the group that I was supposed to start on Facebook, the name of the ship. I did have a vision a long time ago, over a decade ago, that I was both the figurehead and the captain of an enormous flying ship. At the time, I had no idea what that meant. But there were strands of light in a net, and it was around something that looked like the earth. And I was shouting to everybody. I was the captain, and I was shouting, really, really raising my voice. And I was saying, pull. I was just, my word was pull. And all of the people had the light ropes over their shoulders. and everyone was pulling and we were lifting the earth up. And I was the captain of the ship, but I was also, the other half of me was the figurehead of the ship. And I was somehow both of those characters. And then below decks were all of these people who were pulling. And that was like the light workers. And I don't know, apparently that I didn't understand that then. I kind of get it now. So that's the Ascension arc. It's a group of people, and we're going together through this process. For some reason, every time I do a live stream, my whole head bothers me. Just does. I always want to take my head off. Isn't that interesting? It always happens. Like I always have this, I know I can't, but I always have this urge that I just want to take my whole head off every time I do a live stream. The high energy comes in and it's just like, it doesn't like the body. I just like them separate. Okay. So there are anagrams with the Ascension arc too. So all of the people involved, all of the people on board or participating in this network of lifting the planet, I'm referring to that as the Ascension arc. So somebody had said, can you tell us more about how the role we play in this process? Yes, I will, and not just today. There's going to be specific instructions in terms of transmuting, because we're going to be, those of us who are in the kind of in the first wave, the larger group of us, individuals go there all the time, by the way. But there is yet to be really a large, anchored, stabilized group who are fully functional in 5D. There needs to be a lot more up there in order for the larger second wave to come in for a reason. We need to have our transmuting skills really well down. We need to have our connections really well established so that we can transmute for one another, so that we can balance for one another, so that as the larger wave comes in and they are less experienced, they're less experienced than we are. They're going to require help. And as we each help those that are sent to us as individuals, we are going to need our energetic circuitry established so that, for example, if I am brought into contact with someone who's really upset, and as an empath, I'm filtering a lot of their stuff, which we've always been told, so many of empaths had been told in the lower levels not to do that. You don't have to take it on. We do that a lot more in higher levels. It can tank you in lower levels where it's just you. It's not inappropriate to do that in higher levels where everything is shared. It's a lot cleaner to begin with, and we can all assist one another in rebalancing our emotions once we're all fully connected. But we just have to be able to do it in kind of gradually. We're stepping everyone else up there, but we all help one another. So some of this, having the ability to run energy through your body, take on a certain amount of somebody else's pain. The amount that, number one, the amount that we're going to be tanked by it is far less. I have said that before, that those of us who went through, the real light warriors who cut through the toughest resistance, this is going to feel like a walk in the park. Oh my God. We're going to be doing this work, but because we suddenly have a lot of help and we're functioning in our normal, the normal way we operate, it's going to be so much more comfortable for us that even the problems that we face are not going to be that bad compared to what we've already been through. It's a massive improvement. The people who are stepping up a lot of them are not prepared, haven't been prepared for the level of care of others and care of the environment. A lot of them really haven't taken too much of an active role previously in stewardship of other groups. So it's some of the next strata are going to be a little taken aback by, there's a big workload. You know, they're not used to it. Like when all of, if you imagine this, if all of the service people, the service population suddenly vanished, all of the people who have grown very used to going out to dinner all the time and having meals cooked because they could afford that. People who hired, you know, somebody else to take out their trash, or somebody else to do their house cleaning, or somebody else to grow their food. When they suddenly don't have service people to necessarily people who are doing stuff for them, they're going to have to step up, and it's going to feel like a lot more responsibility. A lot of people are not they're not expecting it, but there are a lot of the rest of us who are going to be like that. Like, we do this all the time. You know what? I was working with somebody for a while who used to complain about how hard she worked all the time, and I would just look at what she was doing, going, "Man, that just what you're doing. You're just doing nothing. This is, you know, you want to validate people, but at the same time, I'm like, you're doing a fraction, a teeny fraction of what all the rest of us do normally." And a lot of people are going to kind of suddenly realize that they have been the beneficiaries of a lot of aid from other people. And when we suddenly go to 5, the people who had been using a lot of our energy, because it was very high, there was a lot of voltage there, they're suddenly going to discover that they have to work an awful lot harder. At any rate, that's not what I was really going to talk about. I was going to talk about this, the Ascension arc. So these are the anagrams, and this is how it's going to affect you. So the Ascension arc is, I'm going to read you the anagrams. The Ascension arc is the name of my blog. It's the name of the book, or the group now. I had a soul contract to write the book. I'm not sure that the book is still, we may be too far along. It might be a too linear a format now. I'm not actually sure. It might come out in I know the information has to come out. It might come out in a different form. But it's also the name of the natural instrument of light and love, comprised of all beings who have arrived here to assist in lifting Gaia and her beings to 5. We're all connected, and we've all got these strands, and we're all pulling one another. So you can think of it as the net of light. And there are a number of different grids. There is a mechanism and a circuitry by which this is happening. So anagrams to the Ascension arc. So if you're listening, you're one of them. A resistance honk, designed as a call to rally our forces in order to free the planet. An anagram for the Ascension arc is a resistance honk. We don't like the way the planet was going. We're making a big fat noise about it. There will also be a joyful harmonic. There will be a sonic union, a vibrational union. The resistance in this refers to the earth resisting tyranny of the cabal and the opposing forces. We've been imprisoned for far too long. Another anagram. Do I need to put you down? You're getting agitated. I know, because I'm getting agitated too. A resonance kiths. This material will also resonate with many of our kith. There are kith and kin. So your kin is your relatives, right? But there's also kith, which is friends and associates, people who aren't necessarily your family, but they're your kith. So it's going to resonate with the kin, our soul family, and extended soul family. Yeah. And also our associates. Also, so here's another anagram. A reaches kin tons. So this is what I mean when I say that we have a this body of information has a guaranteed audience because it has to reach certain people. A reaches kin tons. There are tons of kin. We are a humongous family. We need to get reestablished and reconnected. There are a lot of us. We number in the millions. So this message is meant to reach all of those who have partaken of any portion of the Joan of Arc template, which is being retired. We're not going to need it anymore. Stop! This makes angry birds. Hi. Another anagram is a Ankh resections. The Ankh is the Egyptian symbol of life, also called the key of life. We are creators. We're getting our creative ability back when we go up a level. We are now taking our creative abilities back by remembering that it's not held by one singular great external source, but within each of us. This is essential. So this is an energetic transmission that you're receiving now, but it's also going to be information that when it's properly presented a little bit later on, it's going to be in some sort of it's going to be formatted differently so that it's much more easily accessible. Right now, we're just, your energy is getting worked on, my energy is getting worked on, and the energetic streams, it looks like a bunch of streams or rivers, are being routed and rerouted and portioned off, and it looks a lot like braiding. I'm going to also wind up talking to you about the way synchronicities work and why, oh gosh. They told me to use a particular game and I have it. Let me finish this first and maybe I'll get to that. So a Ankh resections. So we're going to get our sacred knowledge given back to us and our power restored. Stop. I'm going to put you down. A ancestry's honk. So a honk is basically, it's like Mother Goose, right? Geese honk. So it's a big noise designed to get everyone's attention and talk about our ancestry, collected ancestry. I'll be making many references to our specific ancestral lineage as I discuss Ascension and as we talk about soul family, soul monads. Fine idea. Why don't you stay there for a second? Hi. You can sit on the floor for a little bit. A ace throne sinks. So that's one thing I really like about the words the Ascension arc, because what we're going to do, what we are doing, is generating equality. So previously, the Joan of Arc template was one that was very much, it came in a very hierarchical system. There was a distinct hierarchy, and a savior figure is exactly that. It's a savior figure. A savior figure will draw all of the attention, and all of the power is given by the populace. They give their power away and they say, here, you do it. You heal me. You save me. Sometimes that's appropriate when conditions are such that the only way you can reach that population is with a singular figure. So in a time of extreme polarity and extreme density, it requires a singular person, but it requires such an enormous amount of energy within a specific figure that we had to have specific circuitry in order to force that to happen. And it required a dark portion also, which is something that I'm definitely going to wind up talking about. Dark and light existing in equal measure, and it can't be any other way. So it should come as no surprise when you understand the dynamics of the energetic dynamics. There is a mechanism by which these things happen. So if you have a savior figure, you're automatically going to have a figure that is equally dark. And sometimes in certain locations, I'm not going to talk about it this time, but I want to talk about it at some point, because great darkness and great light darkness and light always work together. So it's going to inform you on your own path forward. When we're talking about discerning, who do I know how do I know who to trust? There's a certain skill set, a certain knowledge base that you're going to need. That's not what they teach you in schools. In schools, they teach you to trust an external source and go to somebody else for approval, try to get a specific letter from this one person. That's actually a recipe for disaster. In 5, you can't get to 5 if that's what you're doing. You must learn how to trust your own self. It's a skill set that's a requirement. So a ace thrown sinks is another anagram of the Ascension arc. And what that means is I was an ace before, and I was way, way, way far above the crowd, or certainly went ahead of time. I went there ahead of time. And it was a position of extreme isolation. And everybody gave me their power because they thought, well, you'll save us. You'll do it. I believe in you. You can do it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to sit back here. Or you tell me what to do. Even the people that follow you say, well, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. Which, I do that with guides too. Or certainly did then. But I also argue with guides. I tend to really trust my guide's information, but never without question. I always question. And usually when I don't listen, I regret it. There's that too. Anyway, so I'm delighted to say when all of this information is disseminated, and when we're all up there, I will no longer have this position, the leadership role of that template. I won't have that anymore. That will be nice for me because I find it stressful. I don't like it. Many people gave Joan of Arc their power. It served an important purpose for a duration of time, but I was forced to carry a lot energetically that I did not want to. It's a very isolated position to be in, where a king or an icon or a saint is believed to be above people by the people that believe it. It's very important that you reclaim your power. So we're going to, one of the things we're going to do is learn to identify specific places where power is that are probably hidden, that you're probably not aware that you gave your power away. I don't think that's going to be in this particular conversation, but it is going to come. when the equalization of power takes place, we're going to have genuine equality. There is going to be no centralized leadership. There's going to be a different kind of structure. And we can get away with that in the fifth dimension because there's telepathy and empathy and everything is equal. So all of the mechanics change. Let's see. That was that. Let's see. This was mine. Okay. I'm making sure that I don't have other, I think there are other anagrams though. That was mine. Oh, and the rest came from Council of Balance. I guess I'll just blast through this now. I was on a Council of Balance for a long time. The Council of Balance is now defunct. A couple of months ago, it disbanded. We don't need it anymore. We went through a portal, we went through a gateway, and once the decision was made and everybody had basically decided, it had been already decided where each soul was going. They basically, on a soul level, you have made your decision. Even if you don't know it, your soul knows. So the Council of Balance was a council in the 12th dimension, which was composed of 12 very experienced beings, six. You can't really say that because it's above duality. But there were 6 who were tend to be more or less strongly on the light side, but we also, it is above duality. There are 6 of the light and 6 of the dark, but both sides have a very clear understanding that the whole is the thing. So it's not like you can get, I mean, we really are after balance. Even the dark side is, we have a very clear understanding that we have a joint aim, which is balance. And the what happened in the Council of Balance when it existed is we looked at the situation on the planet, and it was our job to make sure the dark and light stayed balanced. So if we can't tell them they can't exist. It's not our job there to trounce them or beat them. That's just creating an enemy. Our job was to keep it balanced and in play so that both sides are getting their needs met. You don't have the right. You may have a strong preference toward the light. I'm always leaning toward the light, but I have a very clear understanding of the dark. And I also know that I do not have the right to tell another side that it may not exist. We don't like it when they do it to us. We're not going to do it to them. So on the Council of Balance, there were 6 that are more or less in charge of the light maneuvers. How much goes where? And there are 6 that are acting on behalf of the dark side, also figuring out what goes where. So at some point, I don't think it's today, we're already 2.5 hours in, I'm going to be talking about certain areas and even sometimes certain individuals or certain organizations that have a very strong, like the Catholic Church being a perfect example, extremely strong light foundation, and equally dark is the organization. The dark and light exist in equal measure in that one structure, in that one, belief system. So we're going to be talking about that because as we go on, you need to be able to identify it. We're going to talk a lot about icons. Are we going here today? I'll tell you what we will be talking about briefly. I did write that down, but I don't think we're going to. we're going to talk about detaching from icons, because this is the purpose of me delivering this information, is in order for the icon to detach. Over many thousands of years, beginning with King David, really beginning with Moses, in this particular lineage, or me personally, it began with participating in King David, participating in the Esther lifetime. There are these gigantic punctuation lifetimes that are where there's a literary component that gets very deeply involved in mass consciousness. And when everybody gives you their attention, or particularly with very strong belief systems, and it's rigidly adhered, and then it's invested in a given figure or an idol, that structure, those people can die. I mean, form just, it just rotates. It's like taking off a suit of clothes. But the energetic structure, because the stories are repeated over and over, and it's in the Bible, and people have read it over thousands of years, and there's a lot of emotion in those strands. So those energetic structures have just been in play, and they're grooved, man. They're really in a deep groove, and they've been perpetually fed. There have been movies, and that was intentional, by the way. Movies made about King David, and series, David and Goliath. There's, Queen Esther, the queen who saved her people. That story's it's in the Bible, and it's just repeated and repeated. And holidays, and it has a certain energetic momentum that has perpetually fed the Ascension arc. Joan of Arc story also. All three of those, King David, Queen Esther, and Joan of Arc, also had an unusually large written or story component. The fact that everything was written down about the Joan of Arc trial, the fact that there was a retrial. It was designed to, number one, be written, because that's going to bring it into form. It's going to keep that alive. They've made movies. They have national holidays. Then she was canonized. It's designed to perpetually get as much energy into this thing as possible, this vessel, so that we can pull it all up with very strong intent. And then once we're all up there, everybody gets their power back, because that was always the ultimate goal. But the process by which that happened required a centralized figure that could contain all of this energy toward a purpose. Does it have a dark aspect? Holy shit, yeah. You cannot have just one side without the other. So at this time of depolarization, all of the icons have to come down one way or another. The holding of that duality it's being, we can't have it. It's actually impossible to maintain. So that's why you have these big polarizing figures. That's like, we thought they were all good, but there was this other side. John of God. That's one. Michael Jackson is another one. Again, I don't know the facts of the story. My guides have told me to specifically discuss the energetics, but all icons of a certain kind that were the focus, became the focus of idolization, or giving our power away. Those are all crashing one way or another. And a very light soul, or a very, very potent spiritual teacher, or might be willing to take one for the team, for example, and say, I'm going to crash anyway. It's so important for people to remove any adulation that, like, I don't know what the thing is with John of God, but I do know I went through the John of God protocol 6 times. I have credited him with saving my life. I was dying. and I will tell that story a different time, but when we're going to talk about Disney at some point too, I don't feel like that. I need to wait for that information for a certain reason. But it's not going to be one thing or another. Either this, we thought this person was good and it turns out they're bad. Or we thought this person was bad and it turns out they're really good. What we need to really do is look at every person and say there's a journey. And not everything is what it appears to be. And boy, I'm explaining this badly. Hang on. What really needs to happen, rather than hearing a piece of information about somebody in the news, even though you want to know what the facts are, or maybe the more important thing, find out what it's doing to you. Pay attention. If you're going to get external facts, you're going to turn to the news and you're going to hear something about someone, Michael Jackson, John of God, whoever. Pay attention. Pay more attention. So let me say it that way. Pay more attention to what it's doing to your internal emotional climate. Pay strict attention to that while you neutrally observe whatever information is coming toward you. And I would say be cautious about the need to jump to a conclusion as to whether somebody is good or bad. Tap the brakes a lot on that tendency, because when you have the full picture, when you understand all of the aspects, man, it really changes an awful lot. Nothing is what it appears to be. And more of your power is going to be careful the way you apply it. As we go up in dimension, I started to say this before, there's we get instant manifestation. So we have to be extremely cautious about, we have to really know that our thoughts in the higher dimensions, we don't have the luxury of the timeline to slow us down anymore. We have gotten used to being able to think a negative thought, taking no real responsibility for it, and maybe we catch it right away, maybe we don't. Which is why sometimes something looks like something, like it's somebody else's fault. There's a whole other level of responsibility that comes in when you have instant manifestation and you recognize that you are now in a creative capacity, and you better not be thinking about a car wreck, or better not be jumping to the conclusion that somebody is an enemy. Yeah, and you also don't want to necessarily jump to the conclusion that everybody is automatically your friend too. I know that I always tend to err that way. For a long time, I just, the majority of this lifetime, I just thought that everyone could be trusted, and boy, was I wrong. I learned that very much the hard way. But it's a better place to start from, I still think. In the fifth dimension, if you hear something like a piece of news and you automatically jump to the conclusion that that person is an enemy and they're bad and it's just be careful, because you can wind up creating an enemy before you even necessarily realize that you did it. What you need to do is get into the habit of automatically looking for commonalities, automatically looking for union. It's going to be easier and safer too when we all get up to 5. And we're also when it's like when you're born, you trust everybody because you're coming from that realm where everyone is trustworthy. And everyone's transparent and lying just doesn't exist. We're merging with a much lower dimension, those of us who are coming down. So we want to maintain our trust, and we also want to rebalance a lot of the distrust from the incoming population who naturally are suspicious. A lot of these things have to be tempered. We are going to temper one another. The lower, the people who are coming up in the bottom triangle, they offer us stabilization. To them, those of us in the top triangle, we tend to seem very unstable and unreliable. You know, you said you were going to be here at 6 o'clock and you were here at 6:30 and that was unreliable and you're not responsible. Because they really like rigidity. Largely that's because babies need cribs. They're coming from a level of where they were not the authority. They've grown, a lot of them have grown very accustomed to leaning on external sources for their decision making. So that's ending. We're not going to have that anymore. But it's just a different kind of, it's a different system altogether. I've gone on really long time. Did I talk about everything no, hang on. I started to talk about cannabis too. So as above, so below. Disclosure brings the potential of creating a disaster if we're not stable. That's true. So these triangles have to merge very carefully. There is, regarding the information, I know some of you, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Let me back up a tiny bit. So I was given download 2 days ago when I was at the doctor's office. And they told me that there's something coming that they don't want me to know about. I know what it is, but they won't tell me specifically who it's coming in from, although I think I know. Some of you can probably guess. They've told me that there is already an infrastructure that has been worked on that I don't have to worry about the delivering of messages, because there's a pre-existing structure, various groups, and my job is just to hold still and allow it to come to me and not to go chasing, because right now they want me to embody much more of the feminine force and stop being so actively busy trying to do too much, and I will actually get a lot more accomplished. It's going to come to me, and but I have to be in a position of allowing it, and I have been extremely guarded. So 2 days ago, I could tell the pain got really, really bad, and I shifted my bedroom around, and I couldn't sleep in my bed. Anyway, I woke up and I was in really a lot of pain, and I could tell that they were like, today's the day. They have been wanting me to use cannabis, and I was told that my medical marijuana card would take a month, and I got it that day. And I could just tell that they want me to do this day. So it makes me very uncomfortable. I don't like it, but I went ahead and took it anyway. And I took 1/5 of the dose that they had given me, the lady who prescribed it. And the gateways did open. So there was about 4 hours where my guides, they were talking to me the whole time, and they said, this is forced surrender. Just allow it. There was like a penetration that went up to my solar plexus, and they said it has to go to your solar plexus because this is where your will is, and you're resisting with your will. I was just in abject refusal, and they said it's been too long. The one who's preventing this from going forward is you, because you don't like to go down that low in vibration. And it's true. And they said it was like trying to put a rock on a fish. And I don't mean a flounder. I mean, like, they couldn't, I was just too squirming, and I wouldn't allow myself to get caught. So they said, hold still, this is your job. So I took marijuana, and I spent one really uncomfortable night, and my body did relax, and I could tell they were just making energetic adjustments. The whole night they were just making a lot of adjustments, not just with me either. I could tell that it was going to the people in the other triangle, because it was the remember we were talking about the resistance in the divine feminine in the church, the aspect of the Virgin Mary and how tightly that was held in the belief system. That's what they were working on. The place in the whole belief system of the entire population, also kind of held by me, having been in that position. They said this is what needs to be resolved, that it's the bottom of the triangle that needs to be basically opened up. And I've been held in such tremendous energetic resistance. So what the marijuana does is open the gateway, but I also know it lowers my frequency tremendously, which is why I hate it. I avoid it like the plague. But I allowed it that one time. But people who are coming from the other triangle, their pinched off point, the reason so many people really like marijuana because it's this gateway, right? It'll open. If you're coming from that that foundational pyramid, it will open your crown, and you will get this awareness. So if you're trying to get these triangles to balance, both the gateways have to be open, which is why they told me I needed to get my physical body a lot more dilated. It just had to be a lot more relaxed. It does help with the pain. I just really don't like I don't like any interference with my thoughts. So I don't take it if I could possibly help it. At any rate, where was I going with this? There was some reason. Oh, so there's so if you're listening to this phone call, our energies are merging. You're getting a transmission, even though I'm conversational, and I've done very little that seems like this is a little bit more like channeling, but your energies are being adjusted, even if you're hearing my voice, it's being adjusted. Oh, I started to say this earlier. You know how you're always supposed to ask somebody's permission before you do energy work? The way these energetic transmissions work is I have put in place a blanket intention that under no circumstances will my energy work on or it will not infiltrate if you don't want it. I won't trespass that. That's why when we went to the space meeting, when Josh and someone were talking over here, and I saw that wall go up, and I knew that I could eavesdrop if I wanted to. But I also knew that I wouldn't. And they know I wouldn't also. They just know I won't. they know me as well as I know myself. It would damage my own integrity, and I won't do that. I will not trespass someone's boundary. It would mar me. I don't want to do that. So they know this about me. And that's why they can put up something like a half a wall. There's a half wall. It's kind of like, it's like putting up a screen. It's like telling somebody that you want privacy, and you know, if you're in the same room, you could go peek around the screen, but you're not going to because that person's changing. Whatever. It's like that. But I know they were talking about me, and I know because of the circuitry that's connected, I know automatically, I don't know how to turn certain things off. I could sense they were talking about it, and I could tell that they didn't want me to know because there's a likelihood that I'm going to flinch. There's a very flinchy thing that's going to happen because there's something I don't want to have happen. And I know it has to. I've talked about this before. There are certain things that I know we have to get to 0 point. And in order to reach 0 point, I have to meet the same circumstance over and respond differently. So certain things are going to be presented as lifetime challenges. And I just already know this. I've got karmic fame coming, and I don't know who it's coming through, but they've told me that there's somebody who's coming to work with me. And I know that I'm doing the second half of David Wilcox's job, but I don't know if it's him that's going to be working with me. Somehow I'm getting some kind of a venue, but that's where there's like what they told me the other day was that there's a pre-structured network on the other side, the same way I have there's a pre-structured network, and it's very close to being ready to come in. And it's going to be a lot. It's kind of like if you're connecting large groups. It's like it's like there are separate groups that are already connected. It's not connected to me. Like right now, I'm relatively anonymous. And I like that. I just really like it. I know the people I talk to. I don't have, too many followers, and I know a lot. I have like my regular people, and I love them. They're like my family, and I'm very protective of them too. But they have told me that I'm going to be speaking to a large number of people, really large. And there's a mechanism by which this is going to happen. I'm going to be introduced to somebody. They said, do not seek this person out. This person is coming to you. So you need to hold still. That's what they said, basically. Just hold still. They're trying to align this one person and me. So my vibration has to go down. It has to get a lot slower. They told me I'm going to gain weight. They also told me, interestingly enough, to be more physically active or engage, be a lot more physically engaged with life, but they specifically told me not to do yoga. And that was another thing, a little bit like the hamburger. Remember the other time when I told, at the end of my last transmission, I told you the story about when my guys told me to go get a cheeseburger from Burger King and watch what came up for me. And just go back and listen to that story. It's at the end. Sometimes your spirit guides can be very, very good spirit guides and give you advice that sounds very unspiritual. And they are giving you advice to get you to do something. There's usually something, they know what your soul path is, right? So the reason my guides told me that yoga is not a good idea now, it makes a lot of sense. Because doesn't it seem like if you're a spiritually oriented person, you need to get some exercise. It would make sense that yoga would be great. And everybody, you know, all the spiritual people do yoga. It's a very new agey thing to do, yoga, and it works. And so what could possibly be a reason that your spirit guide might say yoga is not a good idea for you? In my case, it makes sense when they explained it. In my case, I'm trying to get away from, get out of a particular groove in which physical discipline or, physical discipline was extreme. I mean, I just went hard into physical discipline as Joan of Arc, you know, no sex, no eating, no, or constantly working or exercise was all, whatever. I've got this history where exercise or any kind of physical activity that is restrictive, that has a spiritual component, is the worst thing I could possibly do, particularly if it's designed to, like for weight loss or fitness. They said, actually, that's the last thing in the world that is good for me in particular. I've had 600 years of being steeped with, you know, you must not, or basically just discipline, physically based spiritual disciplines. They said, no, you have to do something that you're engaged in physical life for sheer enjoyment. And it shouldn't have a spiritual component, in my case, in order to balance it. So that actually makes a considerable amount of sense. You coming back up? You're back, I see. You're back from the floor. So like horseback riding would be good, because I always love that. And even in this lifetime, I've ridden seriously. Had many horses. Missed them. But something that engages my physicality, that's they want me to engage much more in physically based experience, but without anything remotely punitive or with anything that is restrictive in any way. So that makes sense. Where was I going with this? There was a reason. Oh, so and then I think I am going to get off. There was something else, though, that I was going to say. What was it? Sometimes, as important as it is to follow your feelings and always go with your own feelings, sometimes it can actually lead us astray. There's another thing to consider. One time I was in a crystal shop, and I went in, it was one in Saratoga. It's a fantastic crystal store, really extensive, Saratoga Springs. And I don't remember the name of the store, but it's a phenomenal crystal shop up there if you get a chance to go. There's only one in that town. I was in there when I walked in, and I said, I had a list of things that I was looking for. And I can't remember what it was, but I said something like, do you have any phenocite, danbarite, azestolite, petalite, scolecite? I was looking for like the really high vibrational, zappy ones, you know, really, really high vibrational ones. And the lady came over, and she looked at me, and she said, I saw you come through the door. She said, you don't need any of these things. Your vibration is so far off the chart. The last thing you want are any of these things that you naturally gravitate toward. So a lot of people will say, you know, when you are choosing stones, go for the one that you naturally that naturally grabs your attention. And as a general rule, I would say that too. Remember, like last time I was talking about there's a population, a group of people who are just crossing over into this terrain. And I would that's advice I would give that group. Go to what you're leaning toward. Learn to trust your own feelings. But then every once in a while, you get a piece of advice that's equally true, but it's exactly the opposite. And it really did strike me as true when this lady, this crystal seller, she said, you don't need any more of this extremely high vibrational zappy stuff. Like basically you are moldavite, angelite, you are all this stuff. You've got such a high, strong vibration already. What you really need is something that grounds you. So she was, giving me, all the grounding stones. She was giving me the red agate and carnelian and hematite. And those were all things that automatically repelled me. Like there was a time, not anymore, but there was a time like in 2013 where coming in contact with a very grounding stone bothered me so much that I couldn't stand it. But I loved crystals, so I would go gather them. But I was always gathering to myself like lepidolite and things that, well, not lepidolite so much because that's soothing, but things that were very sharp and designed to kind of explode the crown chakra because that was a vibrational match to me. It took me a while to learn to embrace the entire spectrum. Like for a while, I didn't like the color red either. I remember a portion of my life, long time, where I could not stand red or orange. I just couldn't stand it. I loved yellow. But it's like the two lower chakras were a place like I don't go there. I'm always in the higher realms. It's the only place I like it. I have difficulty, or had, not so much anymore. It's getting much easier. But it has been a huge challenge for me to get my energy to go, and it still can't. Like my energy is never going to go back down into 3. It won't ever do that. And a lot of you who have already been unplugged from 3 know what I'm talking about. We're never going back down there. We came to break the system and lift all of those who are still, who are on the ascension path. We're here to help break those systems and lift and establish higher ones. Where was I going with this? I can't remember. I feel like we're almost done. I could keep going. Is anybody, anyway, let me finish this though. There's something coming in. I don't think it's going to be all that long. But I always think things are going to happen a lot faster than it does because, I'm way off the timeline, and it always seems to me like things are imminent. It's going to happen right now. So here I am. I'm ready. Nonetheless, having said that, I still think that it's not going to be more than like another month and a half, maybe. Don't, like, that's ridiculously specific, and there's weeks on either side, but I feel like something's coming in, and I know that they're going to drop it on me, the specific person, whatever it is. I'm not expecting this person. Somehow I feel like I'm somehow expecting them, and somehow it's unexpected, but something's coming in. And it's going to cause me to have a reaction. It's the reaction that they're trying to get me to connect with all of you in advance of it so that you can help me stabilize. Because those of you who are who are coming from the lower triangle up, you already have needed stability that's going to help us kind of anchor. The top level is going to be helping with the transmuting. there's going to be some sort of an initial reaction, and they have told me they don't want me to be scared of it, but they also won't tell me what it is because they know that I'm going to be scared of it as soon as it happens. I have PTSD, so I don't know what this is exactly that's coming in. It could be related to fame. There's something there, but I get the sense, I'm telling you everything I know about it. I get the sense that that's not the only thing that they're worried about. They're worried about, worried might be the wrong word. They're trying I'm being played somehow. There's like they can see the fluctuations in my own personal energy. They know what makes me nervous. They know where my fears are, and they're trying to very carefully get me to do things that I wouldn't normally do. There is definitely a feeling that I'm having. For a while, it was like, I feel like this could involve one other person. There's definitely a feeling of like tigers circling one another, or something. Like, I know I have to deal with this thing, and normally we don't. There's just something there that my guides are anticipating that there's going to be a reaction from me, that they don't want it to be too volatile. And I can't tell. Here's the thing. The thing is, they know what's going on with me. They know what is likely to happen. They can see all the percentages. They can look down this timeline trajectory that we're on, and if they're concerned about it, is because they see the likelihood that it's going to happen. So I can tell that the reason they want me to connect with this group of people is so that I can have assistance transmuting a large emotional reaction. It's kind of like there are certain energy streams that when they come in contact, they have a reaction with one another that's very much like a chemical reaction, even though it's not really a chemical reaction, but there are energy streams that respond to one another in very predictable ways. We're going to be able to we will be able to make adjustments to both energy streams. We're going to be able to do this, I think. And I am a specialist in interdimensional harmonics, so I can see a way that these things can merge. We just have to, I can see this too. So when they explain it to me and show me why, like I'm living down, I'm in a weird position, because on one hand, I'm living down here in a body, but I'm aware of what's going on above, and my guides are always in the, they always have the aerial view. So we're in constant communication about what I need to do, but they also won't give me all of the information because they know that there's a strong likelihood that the person part of me is going to have a flinch. And that big flinch, because I'm connected to everyone else, may have a strong, they want to make sure that it just is played right. So sometimes they don't tell me things because they don't want me to get tense ahead of time. So even though I know, because I usually, they're going to give me information when I need it. And they know sometimes they will give me sometimes I will recognize something too soon, and it will give me like, I know where that's headed and I don't like it. I'm not going to go over there. And they want me to spend as much time in relaxation and flow as possible. So they're just not going to, they're going to prevent me from knowing something until it's time. And then they're going to drop it in my lap. And every once in a while, but I'm also connected to them, and there's only so much they can hide. So sometimes I don't know, very often, I don't know the specifics, but I very much get the sense of what's coming. I don't know who this person is. I can see what energy stream it's in. And I don't know specifically when, because it's a divine right timing is a matter of energetic alignment, which has an enormous number of factors, specifically with groups this large. Yeah. We're waiting for the energies to align. And in order for them to align and fall perfectly in harmony, those around me who are linked to me in the larger triangle, the one coming down, I shouldn't say larger, but in the group coming down, it's going to feel to us like we're in quite a bit of stasis, because we are used to things moving faster. Stop screaming. It feels to people in the lower triangle like they have to hurry up, and they kind of do. In order to catch us, they really do have to move substantially faster. So a lot of us are being told, and on the top triangle, we're being told that we've got to hold still, slow down. But that's because we're just lining these things up. And when it's in alignment, it's going to fall into place, and there's going to be a very rapid and abrupt shift. So what they've told me regarding me is that there's going to be a sudden, I'm suddenly going to have a venue. Is that the right word? I'm going to be given some sort of an opportunity for to be able to deliver the information that I was prevented from doing before. And I really have been prevented from speaking, prevented from writing. I was prevented from getting Anna Divine School in Riften. They really didn't want me there. That was a terrible battle. And you know, if they can't get to you, if your integrity remains intact, dark forces, when they, I'm talking more about duality for a bit, in the lower dimension, where there is still this extreme duality, dark forces have a tactic where they can't, if you remain very strongly in your integrity, they cannot take you down. They can't. But that doesn't mean they can't attack circumstances around you, make your life miserable. They can't kill you, but they can make your life so miserable that you wish you were dead. They could definitely attack everyone around you. And that's what's happened. That went on for a real long time. At some point, I will tell that story. But I do know that there's an upcoming venue. I do know that it's going to affect my finances for the better. Thank God. And I also know that it's going to affect the finances of all of the people who have been waiting too, because it's the light warriors. It's like just because of the energetic construct that I have been in, which is going to be dismantled. It's in the process of being dismantled now. Those of us who have been in starvation mode, because, we've been unplugged from 3. We're going to suddenly get fed. And that's going to, that will make for a very nice abrupt change as a time of plenty. So that is coming. I don't know exactly when, but I do know that there is a very large, very abrupt shift coming, and it's going to be a very strong leap, and it's going to feel very sudden, but it's preceded at least for those of us in the top triangle, it's preceded by this time right now of perceived slowing. And it's just because we're trying to match vibrational frequencies with the lower triangle, who are physically based, and everything moves slower. So think about it that way. We're trying to merge these triangles, and these people are in the lower triangle. They're all physically based. Their vibration is slower. They're still on the timeline. So we're going to have to, that feels very, very uncomfortable to those of us who are coming from the top down. We hate that. None of us work that way. We can't stand that confinement. Cancel. But we're going into a time of increased security. Security might be the wrong word. We're going into a time of increased structure, but it's not going to be the same kind of structure that's confining, because we would never tolerate that. And that takes me to the place of what they told me we had reached a place of when they told me to try the cannabis, because we had reached a place where it was triangle and triangle. We reached a place where it was just deadlock, and they said, you have no surrender. Neither side was surrendering. We're not going to, that side was going to remain closed and not going to do it, not going to do it, not going to pay any attention to God. The crown chakra is not going to open. And the other side, which was saying, I can't stand physicality. I'm not going to do it. Don't make me go down there. Too confining. Both of those tips of the triangle have got to open, because we're trying to make the 11 gateway. So these are vibrational frequencies. It doesn't actually work that way, but it's it's not like we're actually trying to pry open a piece of geometry. There are vibrational adjustments that must be done. Nonetheless, they do take a geometrical form. So it's just a way of presenting it in a linear way to increase understanding. I feel like I could keep going or stop here. I feel like the bulk of the information, all of these, hang on. There's also an emollient quality that's going through. There's a soothing there's like a lubricating energy that's going through. I don't know if you can feel it. They're trying to smooth out the connectivity between all of the people. I feel like it's less me and it's more various people in the group, where it feels like there's a little bit of, what is it? Gravel or resistance. There's just like a little bit of a tactile, just energetic bumpiness that they're just going to smooth it out. So I've now been talking for a long time, and really, if you have tuned in, whatever portion of this live stream you've tuned into, that's whatever part you were meant to hear. You're just meant to kind of dip into the energy to get reconnected on an energetic level. Your guides are already surrounding you and are already working with everybody else's guides. This is very much a fated event. All of my information is going to a predestined audience. So if you miss certain transmissions, or you didn't get the other live streams, if you want to go listen to them, go listen to them. If you don't have to. Again, there's going to be a point when this entire system is up and running, that every time you have a question, whoever knows the answer, it's going to automatically come into your head. We're definitely going to be talking about telepathy a lot more. And it's going to be, again, it's going to be in some sort of a codified, more easily digestible, a little bit more, more linear. It's going to be presented in a more linear way. And we're going to be explaining telepathy and different stages of telepathy, and telepathy in children, and how parents can access their children if their children are autistic. Environmental influences. We're definitely going to be talking a lot more about spirit communication, the way that happens, energetic influences, and how energy combines to make matter or other beings, right? Yeah. Again, the new educational system, we're definitely going to be talking about that. There are certain things that are going to have to go into the new educational system. A lot of it is environmental, but also the whole way the days are structured. It's going to be organized very differently. Nurture will be taught. Care will be taught. The wise stewardship of others will be taught. And certain things will no longer be taught. And a lot of people who have been conditioned in the third dimension are going to look at the new system and say, well, what about, XYZ? You have to have these things. You have to have standards. You have to have grades. You have to have, a lot of things are going to change. The geometry of education is going to change. Everything has geometry. The new system is much more based in circles. And that's because the feminine principle is coming back. It's going to be led by the feminine. I do know that I'm going to be using the game Spot It to illustrate synchronicities, the way synchronicities work, the way spirit will try to get certain frequencies to certain locations. You need to know about the way that works. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. And it will inform you about your own makeup, about your own design, the energetics of you. And that will inform it will lead you to see everything differently, to see every object, every other being as being a collection of vibrations, and you will never take anything for granted ever again. You will begin to you will begin to see the consciousness that's in everything, objects. And you will be able to see the energetic ingredients that go into household objects, or go into anything. You'll be able to read the energetic properties, the strands, see the qualities inherent in things, and realize why they are where they are, why something takes a particular form. Every force evolves a form, and nothing is random. And when you really get that through your head, you could just sit in one spot the entire day and just look around. I should remind myself of that when I get too agitated and too eager for movement, because you really can just sit in one spot and look around and see the way everything moves and everything talks to each other. There's a whole other world sitting right, we're stewing in it. A whole other level. It's right on top of this one, and not just one. There are lots of them. You could sit in one spot and just, it's changing, going up in frequency is like moving a dial on a radio. You're just picking up on different stations. And then you can quickly go back down. I mean, and you can wind up going up and down, going to whichever one you want. It's just like finding a dial on a radio, and everyone informs the other. And it's an amazing thing. There are certain things that happen in every dimension. And every dimension has its own slightly different set of rules. There are certain things that can happen in 5 that are impossible in 3. There are also certain things that can happen in 3 that are impossible in 5. And there's a whole bunch of shit that happens in 4. We're definitely going to talk about that too, because we're going to wind up talking about archons and archangels, and we talk about giving your power away and how that happens. There is energetic circuitry that happens, that occurs naturally when you give your attention to a famous person, or when you give your attention to anything. So I feel like I might stop this here. This has really been long and rambling, but again, this live stream and all my previous ones too have been less about the specific information and much more about just establishing energetic flow. You know, this is much more conversational than it was like my first live stream, the one that was 2 minutes long and I cried through the whole thing and was choking. And there were dark forces who really, really, really did not want me to talk, and they still don't. But we've worked through a lot of them. Yeah. Anyway, where was I going with this? This is really going to affect our finances too, dramatically. When we make this jump, it's going to affect not just me, it's going to affect all of us. The whole Ascension arc, of which you are a part if you're listening to this. These words would not reach your ears if it didn't affect you in some way, because that's impossible. Doesn't mean you have to swallow it. It could be that it's here for your own discernment. Maybe it triggers something in you, but as long as it sparks inquiry, that's the important part. But we're just establishing a connection with one another, because there is going to be this change upcoming. Let's see. Is there anything? I'm wondering if I should take questions or not. This has been a really long call. 3 hours and 22 minutes. I'm not tired at all. I could just keep going. What the hell? Maybe I'll just take questions. Anybody have a question? Hi, Susie Myers. Who's here? Anyone have? Oh, Rachel. What about CBD without the THC? I have tried it. It didn't do a damn thing. That's actually one thing I tried a lot of. So we're tweaking the dose. I had high hopes for the CBD only, and it just really didn't. It didn't touch it, actually. I was so shocked. And I used a very high concentration of CBD. Anyway, it does seem like the THC does, and I think it probably because it does have a psychoactive component, which gets me out of my head. I think that is one of the reasons that my body was able to relax. So it does work. I just They said a dose is 5 drops. I used one. I went for the 5 drops, and then I was like, okay, I might do 1 next time. So now I tried 1, and I'm still not a big fan. Just not a big fan. Anyway, does anyone have a question? I'll answer maybe 1 or 2 questions before. Anyone? Anyone? Ow. Any questions? Maybe no questions. Everyone probably went to sleep. Let's see. All right. We've been on here for a really long time. I love you all. Okay. I'm going to sign off. If you do have questions, type some in and I'll see if I can answer some next time. Okay. I love you. Bye.